Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited that you decided to join me today. And if you saw the title of this video, you know I'm going to be talking about everything you need to know before starting your business. So I'm going to go ahead, take a moment and tell you to subscribe to my channel, because if you do not want to miss all of this great content that's going to be coming after this video, which is going to break down everything you need to know about running a business. As I said it in my first video, I'm helping companies from infancy up into $100 million. So there's something here for you. Just bear with me. This video is specifically focused on new businesses, 3 years or less in business. So if you're not 3 years or less in business, don't worry, you can click off, I won't be offended. But before you do, make sure you go ahead and hit that share thing and send it to a friend, a brother, a sister, an auntie, an uncle, a coworker who you know has been bugging you about their baked pies and cookies for the last several months, and you know it's time for them to start a business and they just have not pulled the trigger. So share my video, like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's get into the conversation. Okay, so I spent a lot of time in different chat rooms, mostly on Facebook, a lot of different groups on Instagram, on Twitter, and I hear the same questions over and over again from business owners. Now, what do you think that question is? I want to start a business, but I don't know where to begin. So I'm going to break it down for you in a 5-step guide that's going to walk you through every single thing you need to know before starting your business. I'm going to stop here for a moment and let you check out my little illustration that I did on Canva. I'm working on my marketing skills, and it's going to give you the flow chart of what this video is going to be about. So I'll insert it here. All right, now that you had a chance to look at it, you know that step 1 is analyze your market segment. Step 2 is define your competitive advantage. Step 3 is choose a financing vehicle. And step 4 is line up your suppliers and infrastructure. And then after you do that, you are ready to start a business. So let's break down step 1. Step 1, define your competitive advantage. That is something that even I had to ask myself. Before I decided to venturing into a YouTube channel, I did a ton of research about YouTube videos. I looked at different content creators. I looked at different contributors. I looked at thumbnails. I looked at the length of videos and how well they would be received by the audience. And let me tell you, it is a very complicated process that I have not yet mastered, but I'm working on it one day at a time. Something really interesting that I did was I ended up taking YouTube Creator Academy, and it broke down a step-by-step guide on what you could do to really build your YouTube channel and network with your community. So that's what I mean about analyze your market segment, right? So if I want to break into this new market, which is YouTube, I need to do all of the work up front to make sure that I am well positioned to be competitive in the space. Now, understanding that it's going to take time, it doesn't mean that you don't put the work in up front. So what does that mean for you? If you're a business owner, let's say you're a service business, just for the sake of the conversation, I'm going to assume you're a resume writer. How did you become a resume writer? Maybe you're really good at helping your friends update their resumes. Maybe you've spent some time in recruitment and you decided, you know what, self? I want to go into business for myself and I want to make it happen. Well, what would I recommend you do? I would recommend that you go on services like Vertical IQ and you do research on where you stand inside your marketplace. Vertical IQ is a free resource that gives a ton of information on what you can do to better position yourself in your market segment. It's going to let you know if it's projected to grow, projected to shrink, or projected to remain neutral over the next 5 years. Now, why is that important? It's important because if you don't know where your industry is projected to grow or go, you could literally be stepping into literally the unknown and be really curious as to why your business is not picking up the way you expected it to, when in all reality, the economy is just not positioned for you to grow at that particular time. Now, does it mean you shouldn't do it? Absolutely not. It just means that you should look at your competition and see what they're doing well and emulate it. You got to emulate it for yourself. But you don't want to steal their style. You know what I mean? Because that brings us to step 2, which is defining your competitive advantage. So when I thought about starting my YouTube channel and starting my whole Follow the Unicorn journey, I thought, wow, what's my competitive advantage? What makes me different than every other business owner who's coming out here producing content? Well, for one, I'm an African-American woman, if you didn't already know. For 2, I'm a millennial. For 3, I have generated over $200 million in revenue for businesses from $0 in revenue up to $100 million. That means that I have literally helped them acquire $200 million in capital. I mean, that's a lot of money, and it took a lot of hard work for me to do it. So I think that has literally made me uniquely positioned to help people who are in this space. Now, I mentioned before that I spend a lot of time on community boards, and I get to engage with so many business owners who not only look like me, but who look different from me. And my goal, my competitive advantage is going to be to help them go from $0 in revenue to a publicly traded billion-dollar company. So now you might be asking, I don't really believe you, right? Have you done this before? Have you actually taken a company from no revenue or very little revenue to something beyond their wildest dreams? And to answer your question, yes, I have. I worked with a distributor who absolutely could not get financing from a bank. This is when I was early in my career, and I was able to really understand his organization, understand his business financials, and I gave him his first line of credit. It was $350,000, but it was that investment that he received from the bank because of me that helped him turn his business into a $60 million company today. Now, he and I met in 2013, because it was actually when I started my new position. We met in 2013, and today he's generating over $60 million in revenue. And guess what? He's still my client today. Now, how did I pull that off? Well, I spent a lot of time really understanding the ins and outs of his business, but not only me, he understood the ins and outs of his business. He was able to effectively communicate to me where he was getting his product from, what made him different from every other person who was a distributor in that space. Why was he uniquely positioned to grow? And then I was able to help him craft that story to the financial institution and help him achieve his dreams. So that's the advice I have for you. Analyze your market segment. Take a step back and say, what makes me different? No market, well, tons of markets are overcrowded, but no one can be you better than you can be you. So you have to take a step back, understand where you fall into the market segment, network with other business owners who are going to be able to help you achieve your dreams. So maybe you're not the biggest marketer. Maybe you're an introverted person. Maybe it's going to be your friends who's going to be that competitive advantage for you. Maybe they're going to push your business forward, get you in front of the right people, reshare your content. Use what works for you and what's authentic to your voice. If you're a person who doesn't really talk much, but you're excellent at taking photos, I would highly recommend you hire a photographer and you do the posing. Or if you take the photos yourself, make that what's unique to your business. No two businesses are alike, and no two businesses have the same strategy. Maybe it's just price. And if that's the case, that's okay too. Price is a competitive advantage. Is it a sustainable one? That's TBD, because I don't really think so. In my opinion, I think that if you're building your business solely on being the cheapest provider, you put yourself at risk for being pushed out of the market when someone else comes in and figures out how to do it more effectively, and at a cheaper cost. So if you want to hold on to your customer, give them something special to remember. The next thing is choosing your financing vehicle. This is going to be a meaty one. So if you want to pause here, get a drink of water and come on back to the YouTube video, feel free to do so. I'm going to try to drop some minute markers down below so that you can fast forward through certain segments that might not apply to you. But I wanted to give you that warning up front because this is the most important part of setting up your business. So, step one, what type of entity do I want to select for my business? This is often the most commonly overlooked aspect that business owners just omit from their business selection process. Everyone says, oh, I have a social security number. I'm just going to go ahead and be a sole proprietor. Well, if you decide to become a sole proprietor, you put yourself at risk for potential lawsuits from other customers who may not be satisfied with the product they've received from you. Nobody wants to get sued, so it's very important that you protect your personal assets by not setting up a sole proprietorship. Now, if you're doing this as a hobby, yes, you can set up a sole proprietorship and that would be okay, right? Because you know, it's just a hobby. You're using your social security number. You may work with one person here, one person there, but it's not something you're trying to do, you know, for a long-term sustainable basis. On the other hand, maybe you want to set up an LLC or an S Corp. Now, why are these two different entity types important? Well, an LLC is going to help you limit, right? Because it stands for a limited liability company. It's going to help you limit your liability as it relates to lawsuits from people who you do business with. Same goes for an S Corp. They help you separate what I call church and state. Your home is your church, it's where the heart is, right? And your state is your business. You don't want to mix those two, so it's very important that you separate them. The same thing goes for setting up a business account. A lot of business owners just have the money come in through their Cash App, through Venmo, through Zelle, into their personal checking account, which is unbelievably dangerous. Because if you mingle your personal funds with your business funds and you're not properly structured, if there's ever a dispute, all of that could be seized, including all of your hard work. So remember, an LLC or an S Corp, two different entity types that you could set up that will give you greater flexibility. In addition, an LLC and an S Corp allow you to take on additional investors. And that's going to be so important when we talk about choosing your financing vehicle, because there are so many ways to generate money for your business. If you're an LLC, you can take on additional partners, but you can have what's called an operating agreement. And that agreement will allow you to say who has decision-making authority in my business. So I can give a little bit of you so you can have some skin in the game, but really I'm the decision-making authority of my business, and that's really spelled out in the operating agreement. In terms of an S Corp, it's so important as well because it allows you to have up to 100 shareholders. Yes, 100 shareholders in an S Corp, and some of them can be voting or non-voting. If you have an investor in your S Corp and they're a non-voting member, they don't really have any decision-making authority, and their ownership percentage could be tiny, 0.5%, 1%. 2%. So they don't really have to produce any financial information for the bank, but yet and still they get to make an investment into your business to help you grow. You can also become a general partnership or C Corp, but those are usually more sophisticated entity types, like for lawyers. And C Corps are usually for people who plan on taking on large scale investors. So if you plan on going publicly traded, if you want to get a joint venture or work with capital investors, you want to think about getting a C Corp because it allows for a little bit more flexibility. Now, all of these different entity types have tax implications, and I highly, highly, highly recommend you work with a CPA to decide which entity type is right for you, as well as what those tax implications will be. For the sake of this video, I am going to link some fantastic CPAs in the description box who I know are absolutely qualified to help you make the choices you need for your business and to continue for it to grow. The next thing you want to think about is, okay, well, I've organized my business. I'm ready, right? Like I've decided I'm going to be an LLC or an S Corp and I'm ready to go. Now you're thinking, how am I paying for this? Right? That's usually the most frequently asked question. Like, how am I going to finance this business? Am I going to save up and take money from my investments? Am I going to withdraw money from my 401k? And I'm going to stop there. Because so many business owners take money out of their 401k in an effort to grow their business and to finance their dreams, which, let me just say, I applaud you. Yes, it is an incredible investment to start a business. You want to know why? Because 20% of businesses fail in the first year. By year 3, 50% of businesses fail. And by year 5, 70% of businesses will never return. When you think about metrics like that, you are taking an incredible leap of faith by borrowing or withdrawing from your 401k to finance your dreams where the statistics don't really support success, right? Which is why I said it was so important to analyze your market segment and to find your competitive advantage, because those are the two things that are going to be critical in helping you sustain yourself in this environment. So you decided, you said, you know what? I'm ready. I'm about that action. I am going to reach out to human resources or my 401k company, and I'm going to take the leap of faith. I'm going to withdraw money from my 401k. The first thing I want to say is, are you sure you want to do a withdrawal? So ask your organization if they offer more flexible options like taking a loan from your 401k, which allows you to set standards with your organization, like, oh, I'll pay this back in 5 years and I'll pay myself the interest, which is usually much lower than a rate you would get from a bank. And it still allows you to take the money out, but still keep the money in, if that makes sense, right? So the money remains in the stock market. It continues to accrue capital gains, but you get the benefit of borrowing the money short term to do whatever it is you need to do. Now, the good news is if it doesn't work out and you start your business while you're still employed with your employer, you have that little bit of flexibility to do that, right? Because you're paying yourself back while still employed. But be cautious. Once you terminate your employment with your employer, that loan will essentially become a withdrawal, and you will be subject to tax penalties and earned income at your current tax rate and if you're not 59 and a half years or older. So please be mindful of that before deciding what option is right for you. One option that I would highly, highly, highly recommend is looking at your support system, ask them if they are willing to make an investment into you, and in return, you make an investment back in them. As I said before, under organizations like an LLC or an S Corp, you can give out very small ownership percentages of your company in exchange for equity injections, right? So they give you $100,000 or $10,000. You give them 10% ownership of the company, quid pro quo. I scratch your back, you scratch mine, we're good. The one thing I want to make sure that you do is you set up what's called a promissory note. It's so important. If you're going to take on investors, whether they're friends, family, coworkers, whoever, make sure you clearly spell out the loan agreement so that it can be a paper trail, right? Because things don't always work out, and you want to make sure that it's well documented, and that's going to come in handy when we get to securing financing from a bank, right? Because they're going to be asking for that kind of documentation. So that's the next way you can do it. You can borrow from friends and family, coworkers, Aunt Sandy down the block, anybody who believes in your dream and is willing to finance or sponsor you. You can borrow from them. You can also raise seed money, get equity investors. That's a little bit more complicated and requires extensive research, because if someone's going to invest millions of dollars into your business, you better dang believe they want to make sure you understand your market segment, you have a business plan, you have a resume, you have contacts, you have an infrastructure in place, because nobody wants to put their money at such risk without a guarantee of return on investment. So that's a way. Those are a few ways you can go about financing your business. Now we're going to talk about, what if I want to use a bank to finance my dreams? Well, in all honesty, banks are usually more conservative when it comes to lending money for startup businesses. For the most part, they want you to be in business for at least 3 years before they will agree to financing your dreams. Now, they're going to want some very specific financial information from you if they're going to say, oh, okay, I got you. So usually that is 3 years of tax returns or financial statements, personal tax returns, an account receivable report, an accounts payable report, a PFS, and interim financial statements. Those are usually like the 6 most critical documents you will need. Well, it's more than 6, but like 6 components of critical documents you will need in order to secure financing. So I'm going to stop there. Come back next week and we'll talk about some additional ways that you can secure financing for your business. We'll also talk about how you can set up suppliers and a good infrastructure. And then together we'll get the green light to start. As I mentioned before, I'll link some important context down below, as well as the link to my Instagram page where I share all of this information in an illustrative format. If you like my content, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share it with a friend or family member, and stay tuned for next week. And we'll do this again. Bye, guys.